right, sweetheart. We're a team, and there's nothing to worry about. We come here, and we're going to conquer, and we're going to take some. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
That's what we're going to do, sweetheart. We are going to go and get some. All right, people, on the ready line. Are you me? Yeah! Are you me? Yeah!
Cryptos! Ethereum!
Get on the ready line, Marine! Get something to die! Get on the ready line! Yo! Move it up! Move it up, goddammit! Get hot! 1, 2, 3! Come on, get out! Get out! Get out! Move it up! 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 9! Absolutely badasses! Let's pack them in! Get in there! All right, people, move it! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Hey!
Ready to get it on? You know it. Ready to get it on.
All right, gear up. 2 minutes, people. Get hot.
Somebody wake up Iconomi. Hello and welcome to the second episode of Quibblecast. I'm your host of this cast, Mark Rillen. And if you've seen my first episode, you'll know that I'm still working on trying to obtain the video for this, where you'll be able to see my face and I can get more personal with you guys. But as it stands right now, I'm still on that. I'm hoping by the third episode that, I'll essentially have the video and the green screen working and everything else. But right now, I felt it important to still get this cast out, as I promised a weekly cast, as I mentioned in my first episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that alien clip that I put out there. I thought it was kind of funny. It's just the way my mind works, I suppose. I see those Marines as, each of them is sort of like a crypto, just getting ready to take on the ecosystem, the eco-financial system of the global planet of Earth and the planet Earth, and I just sort of try to visualize that in that skit. But I do highlight one particular crypto asset, and that is a Iconomi, which is what I plan to talk about in this very first episode. So let's get started with that. Okay, sorry about that. Here we go. This is a chart of Iconomi from its inception back in October of 2016 till its current as of January 6, 2018. What I did was I drew a ceiling and trend line based on its peaks and valleys. So essentially what I did from there was plot, one of those trend lines. And this graph is a logarithmic chart, by the way, on the y-axis. So based on the fact that it's a logarithmic chart, I had to, normally the slope of line is delta y over delta x, but given that the y-axis in this chart is logarithmic, you have to do a delta log y over delta x, where x is linear. So it's a semi-log chart. And so I'll calculate the slope of the lines based on my analysis there, where delta log y and delta log x are based on actual values from that chart here. You can see for the ceiling, delta log y is such. This is y2, y1, and log y2, x2, log y1, x1, and for the floor, this is log y2, x2, log y1, x1. Plugging in these numbers, you get the slopes of the relative lines. So based on the slopes, I then projected out what I think the prices would be within those boundaries on 2018. So the ceiling boundary is astronomically high at 564. Now, do I think it'll get to that? I sort of hope so, but I will talk about the Iconomi and its streams in particular, but I do think it's on its way up from that. It'd be great if it did reach 564.19. We'd be pretty good, as Larry David would say. But I honestly don't believe it'll get that high. Now, on the floor side, you're looking at a price of 10.1516. So $10.15. Right now, it's trading at, as I speak, at about $4.20. Last I checked, and it's you get a decent return, but obviously there's opportunity cost relative to the money that you could have made, let's say, with other cryptos as opposed to Iconomi. If your worst case scenario is 150% return, yeah. So from 4 to 10, 420 to 1015, you're looking at a roughly 150% return between now and the end of 2018. Worst case, and again, that's I don't say worst case, but I would say statistically worst case scenario. So it's it's a good return, but again, other cryptos will probably give you a more of a return for 2018. I do expect the price to be considerably higher than 1015 by the end of 2018, and we'll get into the reasons why. So this is Iconomi's old model, and the reason why I say old is that its new model is sort of like on top of this model, but they have additional revenue streams. So these revenue streams here, you have the ICNX revenue stream. You have, which is their index fund. Now, they don't own this fund, and this is a misconception. I mean, they own it in the sense that they run it and they administer it. But the assets under the fund are those people who actually contribute towards the fund. Now, perhaps they have holdings in it relative to the seeding holdings, but perhaps they divulge them. The point is, whatever they hold in the fund, in my opinion, is probably negligible. And all you should be worried about is the fee that they generate from that fund relative to entry and exits and management fees. So let's just say for every $1 million invested into the fund, Iconomi is looking at 30,000, and for 0.1 entry exit fee. Iconomi is also looking at a good return for every $1 million. So I forget what the assets under management is for the ICNX fund, which is now known as BLX. I'll get into my references, and you can go to one of those and hopefully find out what that is. And they're trying to improve upon those, but right now it's not necessarily visible on a day-to-day basis. They have a good amount of funds, assets under management under that fund. The ICNP fund is a private or closed fund, of which they own 20%. So this 20% goes into Iconomi, and basically this fund invests in ICOs that have sprung. You can go to, I'll show you the reference link there, but you can see what their holdings are, and it's it's pretty valuable as well. And the third revenue stream is the DAAs, where digital asset arrays. So you basically create your own. Right now, they're sort of in a phase-in process, where initially they had 10 DAA managers who had a seeding fund amount of over $100,000, and I think that's still the threshold. But ultimately, they plan to offer it to the general public, where the threshold will be much lower. I think it'll be somewhere between. My personal feeling is that it'll be about $20,000 to $30,000. I have people talk to me and say it'll probably be $10,000, but it'll probably be more. It won't be 100. It'll be less than 100, but it'll it's anybody's guess as to what that threshold would be once it goes public. So you have these three revenue streams that go into Iconomi, and Iconomi, for those who don't, it's sort of like an asset management company, but they try to be more than that as a result of the new model that they've created. So we go into that. Well, let me go in first into the references. I like this particular reference from Crypto Coin Rockstars. They talk about Iconomi from in October, based on the old model, and they give a very detailed and straightforward explanation of what Iconomi is all about. I don't want to beat a dead horse, so please go to that website if you really want to understand what Iconomi is. These DAA dashboards are basically an introduction to what the firm's what the other funds are offered by the fund managers, and they explain what their fees are. Some vary, some are 3%, some are less than that, and it's very good. But it doesn't tell you assets under management, which is a big pet peeve of mine. And that's something I hope Iconomi improves upon going forward. And plus, they have this 2018 roadmap, which I'll get into later in this in a future slide. They published it somewhere between Christmas and New Year's of last year, and it's pretty good. And we'll get into it in a couple slides from going forward. So I just want to add a couple things here, some questions that sort of are hard to find. And if you go to the Reddit I find is very useful for all coins. It definitely has a lot of useful information. Iconomi uses it for communicating to investors, and I think a lot of or I think a lot of crypto assets do the same, based on my own research. So the Iconomi team, and this is from the crypto rock stars, received 8 million coins, which they cannot sell until October 2018. So there's 100 million coins minus the amount that they've burned, which is roughly 211,000. So there's 99,789,000 roughly of coins out there, but 8 million of those coins are held by Iconomi staff, which they can't sell until 2018 in October, because that's when the ICO came out, which was roughly 2 years from that time period, from October 2018. So the reason why I mentioned that is that, obviously it's in their best interest to get the stock price as high as they can if they're looking to actually cash in on the amount of efforts that they put into the firm from 2016 onwards. So, my point is that these staff members are definitely doing what they can to improve the stock before October 2018 arrives, stock price. Or, no, I won't say the stock, the coin price, excuse me. I'm a Wall Street guy, as I mentioned. So the second one is that Iconomi does have first mover advantage. It is in the asset management space. For those of you who don't, asset management is just like, offering a way to invest, for people to invest their money. Usually for investment banks, it's usually rich people that have the capacity to invest their money and get a decent return. But, Iconomi offers this as a new way to offer to retail side. Now, on the retail side, asset management is more seen as can be done through traditional vehicles such as Fidelity Investments or Vanguard or BlackRock, or there's many others. Charles Schwab. I don't even know if that still exists, but I'm just giving you an example. So Iconomi is looking to change that whole dynamic through blockchain, and I think it's a very good thing. So, I just want to say it has first mover advantage relative to the blockchain space in terms of trying to expand blockchain into asset management. But there are competitors, and its number one competitor, in my opinion, is Melonport, even though they've gotten together and they've stated that they're not really competitors and they help each other. Maybe that's true to an extent, but I think that Melonport is a competitor from how shall I say, from a naked point of view. Plus, it has additional competitors, people that offer current vehicles for investors, retail in particular, to invest, such as Fidelity Investments, which is high on cryptos from my understanding, and Goldman Sachs, who just recently opened a trading desk. And those things are, and other companies and other investment houses that exist. So I'm sure we'll get into the space, as I believe in it. And as it grows, it currently is $800 billion, by the way. It was 600 at the time of my last cast. So I'll get into the fact that my prediction for 2.14 trillion by the end of this year is looking pretty good. Pretty good, as Larry David would say. So my point is that, there's going to be more entrants into this space, but I think Iconomi has a good first mover, and they're ahead of the game relative to its competitors. The problem is, like people will come in doing it better. Melonport has a decentralized system as opposed to Iconomi's centralized system. Again, please look into those references and you'll find out more. In addition, go to Reddit. So this is Iconomi's new roadmap. And the reason why I mentioned this new roadmap is because it has various streams that are new to revenue streams that are new to. Let's see if we can zoom in on this. Give me a second here. If I go here and it's pretty good actually. So if we look at it, you have a roadmap here where we have DAA managers, users, and the platform. So when it comes to DAA managers, one thing I've from reading their roadmap, which is on my reference of links, is that they'll be paying fees to DAA managers and the like in terms of ICN. So ICN has a use in that it will be used for fee payments. And you can check that out for yourself per that reference link I gave you. So that's another revenue stream in the sense that, it gives Iconomi, a lot of people have complained that Iconomi doesn't have a usage or an actual protocol associated with its token, and that it's just more like a stock than it is a token, and that it's not utilized for anything. So Iconomi, I think, has created that utilization in that regard. On the platform side, so we go introduction of fees payable in ICN that I mentioned. They also have a Big Four audit going on, and I don't think any other ICO token has such a type audit to give it legitimacy. I think Iconomi, I've always thought it's been a legitimate firm. It's not fraudulent in any way, but having a Big Four audit behind it will give it more legitimacy. It's also offering custodial services with Iconomi. You actually have to house your assets with Iconomi. At least that's my understanding, because I plan to actually open a DAA with them once they offer it from a retail perspective, and I don't have to fork over 100,000, and I could see the fund with whatever threshold they come up with, which is probably going to be considerably less. So they plan on, and once you do trading and you have, the actual coins that you own, they have to be stored somewhere. Now you can take them off the exchange currently, and we can get into that later. But Iconomi is offering services where you can keep it with them. That sounds to be like a service type situation where they'll be generating income there. And on the user side, they plan on issuing a debit card similar to Bitcoin Gold. There are cards out there where you can actually deposit tokens and have a credit card, and sort of a 10x where you can use that credit card to then buy things. With Coinbase, I believe they have a Swift card or some kind of card where if you have coins under Coinbase, you can then use that card. And it's like a debit card in the sense that you can charge things with the assets that you hold under the exchange at Coinbase. So I think that's pretty good that they're offering that. Also, they're going to offer direct purchase of individual digital assets. Similar, so they're going to be an exchange, as it were. Well, that's the way I see it. Excuse me. So it's going to be, there's additional revenue streams going on here. They plan to be like a one-stop shopping, not just in asset management, but in terms of everyday use, in terms of managers having more functionality. The platform will be more expansive, and this all falls in top with the old model. So the old model, when I say old, it still exists, but it hasn't gone away. It's just that this roadmap sort of like supplements it. So I think Iconomi has a huge future. I've been invested in it for ever since early 2017. And I liked it then, and it went through a lot of trials and ups and downs. If you look at this green line here, which is U.S. dollar price, it went as high as almost $5 back in June of last year to 94 cents just recently. So, people have their doubts with it. But one thing I do want to mention from a statistical point of view is that its book value is extremely low. So here we have what is known as ICN Hodler site. It's customized. I don't think ICN has anything to do with it, but I find it to be very good. You can see here it has a Reddit section in terms of comments made and posts made. It has certain statistics, and you can go into more details relative to the menu on top and certain links here. Talks about its CCP fund. Scrolling down, what else? Yeah. So it has a lot of useful information if you're interested in the company. You can see right now that its price is $4.42 and its price to book ratio is 0.88. So if you were to make a price to book ratio of 1, which means that its assets equal its actual market cap, which is fair. So technically, if you owned all of ICN in terms of its tokens and sold them all at a price to book ratio of 1, you get exactly the amount of assets, or its balance sheet in terms of assets minus liabilities. So you get the worth of that company, so you wouldn't be losing anything. And then liquidated it like a venture capitalist would, or not a venture capitalist. What do they call those people? Private equity, like one of those Mitt Romney types. So anyway, my point is this price to book value is less than 1. Now, in the Wall Street world, that would be justified for any company that is not doing anything with its assets, right? So if you have a company that has lots of cash or lots of assets, more than its liabilities, and is just sitting there doing nothing and collecting dust and doesn't have any model, then you can justify it. So as well, they're not really they're not really trying to do anything with that. They're trying to invest that money, and it's just sitting there. In Iconomi's case, that is definitely not the case. I've shown you the old model. I've shown you the new model. The old model has revenue streams that are growing. The new model has additional revenue streams that are in development. So, Iconomi is expanding its staff based on Reddit posts that I've read, plans to anyway. And they're definitely doing something with their cash. So why is the price to book ratio less than 1? Some people say that it's not a traditional stock. I don't care if it's a stock, crypto asset, not. If you got a company that's trading less than it's worth, there's got to be a reason for that. And there's no reason that I can see that Iconomi should be trading less than that. So you put a price to book ratio of 1, that's 0.145 cents. It should be roughly $5 right now. And that's at a 1 ratio. Now, back in the internet days, there were companies that came out and were trading in the hundreds. I mean, Mark Cuban made like $2 billion and then sold his company and it went bust. But, he was smart enough to know that in those days, you could just create an internet company and it would skyrocket. And that's kind of where blockchain is with a lot of its firms. They got a lot of coins out there, a lot of assets out there that aren't making any money, but are trading at high multiples. And it's just infinite multiples because they're negative in terms of money making. They're just burning cash and they have future gains. But here you have a company that has future gains and making money now and is less than book value. Why is that? It's a boggling of the mind. So in summary, I think ICN, and let me just say that in my summary and as well as everything else I've said is a financial is my opinion and should not be considered financial advice. Again, it's my opinion and should not be considered financial advice. So let me go forward and say that, in summary, in my opinion, ICN is an up-and-coming stock. It has a huge potential. It's currently trading less than its book value. If you bought into it now, the odds that it'll tank. There's of course a risk with everything, but I think you're standing on good footing relative to your investment if you were to put money into it now. And that's just my opinion. Take it or leave it, whatever. So that's where I stand. And Iconomi itself is a management firm. They just need to wake up. And, I consider them a sleeping giant. And they like to tout their merits and communicate them, and they also go through Reddit, but they rarely talk about, you know, the future in terms of where they see Iconomi going and getting that out there relative to talking about it, relative to spokespersons going on box mining, going on Crypto Daily, or Crypto Daily, I don't know. But point is that they need to get out there. They need to be more American. They need to be more arrogant and talk about why their company is going to be great going forward. Now, I got nothing against Europeans. I live in Europe. But, you know, I just think Europeans have a way of being modest, and that's to their credit. That's not necessarily to their disadvantage. But, you know, if you're trying to, you know, if you got a legitimate firm and you're trying to promote it, you got to be like Don King, man. You got to get out there. You got to talk about it. You got to talk about what the future is for Iconomi. You got to get people excited about it. And Iconomi is not doing that as a management firm, but they hope that people get excited about it through its merits, which can be warranted. I just think they just need to get out there and be more of a promoter rather than an action taker. I mean, I'm great they're an action taker, but let's do some promotion here. Let's put some hustle behind that muscle. So I left without Iconomi. I want to get into the second promise that I made versus my last post, and that is my long-term investment tool, which I am offering for free. So let's get into that, and let's start. So this is what I call Quibo's long-term investment tool. Now, a couple things about this tool. You need Microsoft Excel to open it. In terms of how to access it, you have to go to this particular link that I've set up. And I will provide a link at the below this cast, so you can just click on it and go straight there. Once there, it'll ask you to open it up with Google Sheets. I recommend that you just download it if you have Excel and just use Excel to open it up. As you can tell, I'm losing my voice, so I'll kind of make this kind of quick. The ultimate goal from this sheet is, again, this is for a long-term investor. It's not for someone who's doing day trading or looking to make a quick flip. When I say long-term, I think that you should be holding your positions for at least a year. And that's beneficial not just for the spreadsheet, but also from your trading philosophy. As you can see, the prices are changing. I have automatic feeds here. This is a dashboard, and this dashboard provides you with three things. And what you're seeing right now is the P&L side of things, and you see that the chart is changing. But let's see if I can scroll. As the computations are working, sometimes it's hard to scroll through the spreadsheet, but I'll see if I can do that. Yes, there we go. So things are moving. Hold on, because it's going through calculations. That's why it's slow. It also provides you a market value, and you can see the numbers changing there. But as I said, it's going through its calculations. These calculations get updated every 20 minutes, and it goes through an additional. It also provides you with what I call concentration type spread relative to how much you, in terms of parts per million, you own of the particular asset relative to its total amount being offered. And up top here are just percentages or classifications. We'll get into all these things later, and I hope to explain the sheet more and more detail with every cast I make. But I would appreciate if you do find it of use and you are a long-term investor, please download it, inspect it, and just to give you a brief summary of what this sheet is all about, you have a buy book, a sell book, a transfer book, and a position reconciliation sheet. Now, for long-term investment purposes, you rarely use your sell book, and your transfer book you would use when you're transferring coins out of the exchanges that you buy them in and put them in your hardware wallet. There are costs associated with that, and so you have to capture those. So I have a transfer book for that. And you have a buy book, whereas most of your positions get held. So right now I'm clicking on the buy book, and you can see that I have here examples of 265 trades. Just so you know, these are not actual trades. The quantities have been changed. And so this does not represent what I actually own or what anyone owns for that matter. And let me go on and further add that any information I'm providing should not be considered financial advice, but rather my own personal opinion. So when you're the backbone of this sheet is the buy book. where you're entering, the date of the trade, the exchange you bought it from, what you used to buy it with, whether it's Ethereum or Bitcoin or in the future some other coin, how much it costs, making sure you have your times right. So if you go back, you can determine the price at the time you bought it. All these things are useful. Just a helpful hint to put things in this buy book as soon as you do the trade. As soon as you do the trade, if you put them in the buy book, it's much simpler than, let's say, if you waited 3-4 days to make and then put the trade in, because now you have to go back and determine what prices what the prices were, and you have to do time conversions and go to particular charts and then look up the UTC time and then find out what the price was at that time, and so on and so forth. But if you do the trade and immediately you put it into your buy book, that information should be right there and available to you. Now, working on Wall Street as a product controller and a back office person and an auditor, there are plenty of problems where I would discover that, after the trade is made, traders don't get their information to the back office, to the people who record this stuff, who can monitor it. And there are a lot of breaks in the process. And as a result, that's why I say you have to put your information in as soon as you do a trade. The longer you wait, the more likely that you're making an error exists. Now, when I created this trade, I had the spreadsheet. I hadn't made a number of trades, and I had to go back several months to figure out what the heck happened, and it was a nightmare. So now that I've got things up to date, when trades are made, they get put in as soon as possible, and it makes it much easier. And once trades are in, they go into a precision reconciliation sheet, and I'll go into how this works. Right now, it's not complete, but again, I'll provide that detail. And ultimately, your dashboard gets information from this precision reconciliation sheet, which gets it from the buy book, and as well as tables, which are hidden in separate spreadsheets. As I said, I'm just wanting to offer it via the link that I will provide at the bottom here, that I'm showing to you in bold type at the bottom of this page. So it's just something to open up, see if you find it of use. As I said, I'm offering it for free. Some companies, some places, if you go on the web, they're offering something like this where you have to pay them. And, again, I ask that you use it. Please write comments or questions in terms of how it works at below this cast. And hopefully, as we make more and more casts, we'll get into how the spreadsheet works. And you can use it going forward, not just for the securities that I have listed here, but for other securities that you may buy that I don't have listed here. I can show you how to set those up and automate your feed so that you're monitoring all your positions and they get updated every 20 minutes. So that's all I have to say for now about this spreadsheet. Please go to that link that I provide at the bottom of this cast, as well as it's here on the bold type. I show it again. You can pause this and perhaps a copy paste. I don't think you can from a cast, but hopefully my link works. And then from there you download it, and if you have Excel, you can start using it. And if you don't have Excel, you can try Google Sheets. Don't know if Google Sheets will work on this, but you can give it a shot. I haven't used Google Sheets, so I recommend that if you don't have Excel, try Google Sheets. If you're having problems, fundamentally stop using Google Sheets. Get yourself Excel. Hopefully, Excel is kind of universal for people in our space. And I look forward to hearing you in the next cast, or I look forward to you listening to my next cast. Again, thanks for your time, and see you next week.